Some thoughts about the KD story. Listen, I know it's football season. Kevin Durant, about a month and a half ago, I want out. Then he went dark, didn't hear from him. So Shams Charania, legitimate source, Durant met with the owner, Joe Tsai, and said, fire Steve Nash and the GM, Sean Marks, or I'm out. So, Kevin Durant's interesting. So I got kids, right? Teenage kids. And one of the things I have noticed and had to sort of monitor, and it's a reality if you're a parent with teenagers, is social media. It's got a real effect on young people because young people generally aren't married. They're a little self-absorbed. Young people don't have kids or a professional career. So a lot of time, 7-8 hours or more on the phone. And I try to dissuade my kids from doing that. I have said some of the weirdest behavior in professional sports has been from single guys. No kids, no wife, a lot of time by themselves, get off work, go to the phone. Aaron Rodgers, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, right? A lot more time to be into you. And I think Kevin Durant, actually, we know he engages a lot on social media and is a pretty sensitive guy. Nothing wrong with that. That I think Kevin Durant's one of the first victims of social media as a professional athlete. And by victim, I mean, if Twitter didn't exist, Instagram didn't exist, the constant harping on Kevin Durant about joining a championship team in the Bay Area, he wouldn't have left. I do think he would have left Russell Westbrook because Westbrook takes the air out of the ball, and Durant increasingly was frustrated that he would control the possession until the very last few seconds, give Durant a pass in the corner, and he'd have an awkward shot. And there was a stat I saw a few years ago that Durant was shooting with less time on the clock than anybody else in the league when he was a member of the OKC Thunder. So I think that would have transpired, that move. But I think Golden State, the minute he joined a championship team, this avalanche, this tsunami of social media backlash that he couldn't beat him, so he joined him, I think it affected him. He was very prickly, more so than usual, and I think it wore him down. And that he didn't really truly enjoy being the two-time finals MVP. He enjoyed it very, very briefly. And everybody around him with the Warriors, because of social media, walked on eggshells. Bob Myers once joked at a championship parade about KD. It got oohs and ahs from the crowd. It's been well documented. It's been well documented that Steve Kerr had confided with players on the team. It was just a big pain in the ass. You were constantly worrying about offending Kevin Durant. And so I think to some degree, his move to Brooklyn, which has been an absolute mess, 2 first-round exits last year, this year, it's a mess. I think he's a victim of social media. And, from time to time, I don't do it much, but once or twice a year, I'll go speak to a college campus or young broadcasters, or even if it's private. I always tell them, don't let Twitter produce your show. 22% of Americans are on Twitter. 78% of people are not. It's simply not a reality. And I think Kevin Durant, it's easy to be fooled, tricked, persuaded, bothered. Your anxiety level can go up. It's happened to me before, where I just put the phone down. People are being ridiculous. I have so many filters on my phone now. I don't block anybody. I just don't see the criticisms because I don't want to deal with trolls. And I think Kevin Durant, who's been pretty famously prickly on that and sensitive to that, was a victim of that. I don't think of any of that stuff. If it doesn't exist, he's still a warrior. Because I'll say it again, I thought leaving Steph for Kyrie was absolutely an egregiously bad decision. And I don't think Durant's a dumb guy. He knows basketball. He knows he can play. He was persuaded by social media. The other day on this podcast, the Colin Cowherd Podcast, we went back and we talked about, on average over the last 5 years, there are 10 bad teams in the NFL. And by bad, I mean 4 games under 500 or more. That is the average over the last half decade. 10 bad teams in the NFL. And about 12 really good teams being double-digit wins. So there is more good to very good than there is bad in the NFL. Mekhi Becton, promising left tackle for the Jets. is reportedly now done for the year. Awful news, had an injury. The Jets are in a weird spot where I think they made a big mistake on their head coach. But I really like their GM. I like several players on their roster. And I think Zach Wilson is really talented. But if Saleh backfires for the Jets, and I think he's over his skis. Remember, 75% of coordinators who get head coaching jobs in the NFL don't work. And even the ones that work, Kyle Shanahan, it's hard to win. It's really hard in this league to win. Bill O'Brien is unemployed in the NFL. He won a division multiple times with backup quarterbacks. It's hard. The Jets will be an interesting team because I think they have the right GM. I think their roster is significantly better than 2 years ago with this GM. I think Zach Wilson has some talent. I really do. He's got a whip of an arm. Little Johnny Manziel personality-wise, a little bit of hero ball. But I think the Jets are going to be a 6-7 win team. And so when I heard this news on Mekhi Becton, it's obviously very bad news. Really tough for young quarterbacks with, backup left tackles. Maybe they go after Dwayne Brown, who the Seahawks moved off of. But the Jets will be an interesting team to watch. Unlike the Giants, who don't have the quarterback, who don't have the roster, and have been bad for most of the last 9 years, there have been moments with the Jets in the last decade that you kind of like them, that you're kind of interested in them. So I think the Jets, there's some wins early in their schedule, first 8 games. But I do think they whiffed on the coach. I think the Giants got the right coach, but have a much bigger hole to dig out of because they have the wrong quarterback. I think the Jets got a lot right, and maybe even Zach Wilson, but I think they got the coach wrong. I don't think Saleh was ready in that division with Sean McDermott, Bill Belichick. He was ready to go head-to-head with those guys. Not with that roster. So Hard Knocks, this year it's the Detroit Lions is the choice, debuted last night on HBO. I'm not a fan of Hard Knocks because I think it's really unfair. If you look at the history of Hard Knocks and the teams involved in Hard Knocks, they're historically really bad. And I think what's interesting is the Colts, for the first time last year, the NFL started taping mid-season. Remember, the Colts were the team used. You remember that last year, right? And I said, I don't like, in the middle of a competitive season, in a competitive division, Titans-Colts. Suddenly I've got 34 camera guys and producers all over my team. Ask yourself this. What team in the NFL melted down in the last 2 weeks? The Colts. Something can be good television. Hard Knocks often is. But I think it's a competitive disadvantage. I don't think you can put cameras around people and not change their behavior. Why do I think that? You ever gone to a game, a basketball game, an NBA game, or a baseball game, and they put up like the kissing cam and they take shots of people in the crowd, and reasonable, well-adjusted people become complete morons? Cameras affect people. You do silly shit. You do weird stuff. You're not yourself. And I mean, I think about this all the time. I've been on camera, for 3 hours a day forever. Most of my adult life, local TV, simulcasts. You could not put 8 cameras in my house with my family and nobody be affected. You can't be real when you're being taped. And I think teams get a little inauthentic. I think the league, by and large, does a pretty good job to make it non-evasive. But I keep seeing these teams. The Cleveland Browns had it. Hugh Jackson, that team melted down. The Colts had it last year. They melted down. I mean, the Colts' personality, by and large, the last 10 years has been boring. They were crazy town at the end of last year. The owner went nuts. Carson Wentz went nuts. The coach suddenly couldn't coach. What happened to the Colts? I don't think it's a coincidence.